Yeah, thank you very much as various media houses in Juba for today's event. Today's event as a Community Empowerment for Progress organization, through our Election Domestic Watch, which is a program, we are trying to share our first pre-election stage domestic observation report, because as you are aware that the Electoral Commission was reconstituted yesterday, and immediately after the reconstitution of the Election Commission, as a civil society, we have responsibility to provide an oversight observation on the preparation for the election. So this will be our first report as a first election domestic report under the pre-stage of the elections. Our focus that we're focusing on really openness of civic and political space that determines public trust and confidence on the forthcoming national general election proposed for December 2024. To share with you a bit of our concerns that we have raised as civil society is that we believe that elections is a requirement by the revitalized peace agreement provisions as the end game of the political transition of our country from violence to peace. So it's something that the parties have agreed upon. But we are aware of some concerns that we feel we need to raise as our first domestic observation. And the concerns that we are raising in the rationale that if really South Sudan parties want to have a democratic, free and fair election, right from the pre-stage of the electoral process, we are calling for various political parties in South Sudan that one, they should really avoid these contradictory political messages that normally they have, and this contradictory message is misleading the public in terms of achieving the goal of having an elections, and specifically in various social media platforms. The other thing that we feel is very important to raise today at the pre-stage of the election is that South Sudan political parties should be careful of acting an early politicization of the functions of the party influence with the National Election Commission. What we intend to do is that we are worried that some of the members among the National Reconstituted Election Commission belong to political parties. So they should not take their party politics into the function of the Electoral Commission, because the day they take the oath, they are supposed to be neutral as the mandate of the Commission requires from them. To share with you key observation findings that we have, we call them 15 points of action. So let me start the key observation, or what we call 15 point of action that we feel is essential for the pre-stage of the elections. Number one, we would like to say we urge the members and the leaders of the Reconstituted National Election Commission to avoid party politics or political party interference in administering the affairs of the Commission. Number two, South Sudan political parties need to be careful of early acts of politicizing the function of the National Election Commission. The act of early politicization of National Election Commission by the parties is dangerous, and it will create a public undermining of the credibility of the National Election Commission. The third one is the leadership of the Commission should sincerely and honestly commit to observe the principle of impartiality, non-partisanship, and remain as independent leadership. The fourth, we urge political leaders to have political decisions that are required. What are these political decisions that are required? You are aware, colleagues in the media, that there are preconditions for the elections. And the preconditions for the elections that are there, required by the agreement, number one is population census, having a constitution, having security arrangement, but also we don't have judicial reforms per now. Electoral disputes management is one of the preconditions. So based on this, as a civil society, our fourth call is that we wish the political leaders should make political decisions on preconditions that are associated with the creation of an environment for the conduct of the election by December 2024. Without proper political leadership consensus for the conduct of the elections, chances of having violent election is easier, especially at state level. I would like to stress that as a CEPO, we see elections are going to be more violent at state level compared to the national. And specifically if the political leaders have not made any consensus around managing the preconditions that are required by the agreement. The fifth point, we're calling upon political leadership should act urgently on allocating adequate funds for the establishment of the National Election Commission, Political Parties Council, and the National Constitutional Review Commission. Inadequate or low financing of the electoral process will create a moment for undermining credibility and reliability of the process. So we're trying to say now, as these three institutions are reconstituted, the leadership need to allocate money for them. Otherwise, if the money is not given for them timely, if we have to wait for another period of time, the credibility and the reliability of the process will be undermined. The sixth is delaying or personalization of the National Election Commission may contribute in affecting the preparation for the conduct of the national elections in December 2024. So if we delay to operationalize the National Election Commission, as you are aware, the National Election Commission is supposed to have units, it's supposed to have offices at the states level, it's supposed to have its logistical units, it is supposed to have all the requirement, technicalities. If we delay that further, there's a high chances that might affect the preparation for the conduct of the election. The seventh is that the National Election Act 2012, amended 2023, requires some review for compliance with best practices of electoral process through the development of the electoral rules and regulations. If you look at the National Election Act right now that we have, this National Election Act, in terms of mathematics, it has problem. I'll give you the problem in terms of mathematics. What is it, for example? The seats that we have per the Act for the Parliament is 332 seats. And President is given 5% to appoint. Now, if you calculate 5% of 332 seats, it gives you 16.9. Now, if you round that 16.9 as a 5% of the President, it gives you an odd number of 315 that you cannot divide it to 50-50 between proportional representation and geographical representation. It means President will only appoint 16, so you don't round it up, in order to have an even number of 316 seats that you can divide 50-50. So those mathematical challenges require a review, and the review should be corrected during the development of the rules and regulations. Number 8 is incidents of violation of civic space. How small scale it is, like surveillance. If there's any violation of the civic space, how small it is. You are aware that sometimes surveillance is a violation of civic space, where media houses will see people who are strangers touring the offices of media houses or around where journalists sit, or journalists are followed by strange people, vehicles, number plate, all those are surveillance. So as such violation of civic and political space, how small it is, still it impacts negatively on public trust and confidence on the credibility of the electoral process. So if there's any surveillance coming up, that may challenge. And of course, you know, civic space is very important. Number 9 is restriction of political freedoms on association, assembly, movement, and campaigns for all political parties, while one or more other parties are unrestricted in conducting political campaigns. It will have direct negative implication on citizens' belief for free, fair, credible, and peaceful conduct of elections. So it means if other parties are not campaigning and some specific parties are campaigning and some specific parties are controlling the campaign, citizens will not have that trust that elections are going to be free, fair, and credible and peaceful. Number 10 is that civic and voter education should be so much driven by civil society, media, and faith-based groups for effectiveness. So it's a high time that the commission have to ensure media have a big role, civil society have a big role, and faith-based organizations have a big role to deliver civic and voter education. Why? Because they don't have any political interest at attack, and they can act effectively. And that also goes in line with how much is media allowed and civil society and faith-based to exercise their civic responsibility without any restriction. 11, ongoing clashing of political messaging about the elections preparation by the political leaders do create sharp increase in citizens' doubts about the credibility of the elections. You might have seen today in a paper, one political party have said another political party is afraid of the elections. For them, they are prepared for the elections. Such messages, it will really create increase in citizens' mistrust on the credibility of the election process, because people are supposed to have one language. So the message is that political contradictory message is challenging. 12, to win the intended inclusive elections where youth and persons with disabilities gain meaningful participatory representation, it requires the National Election Commission to develop clear rules and regulations for that. So for us to have the youth and persons with disabilities and women to get involved in the elections with the meaningful participation, we need clear rules and regulations. 13th, National Election Commission should develop clear rules and regulations for qualifying the electoral ratio of 5% appointment to the National Parliament by non-partisan and not any politician who attempted to contest and failed to win. So the 5% given to the president, we are demanding the National Election Commission to develop rules and regulations, that these rules and regulations meant to bring people who are non-partisan to benefit from the 5%. For instance, minority group tribes that are minority that may not constitute a constituency